how to identify and change negative thought patterns. Let's get right into this. Right off the bat, we need to develop self-awareness. And I have a bunch of stuff on the board here, and I've organized it into 3 neat little categories. And one of the qualities, the very first one, is self-awareness. And I'm going to explain each of these categories one by one. But first, I want to talk about the importance of not getting wrapped up in our usual thought pattern and just being able to watch a pattern of behavior, an emotional pattern, a thought pattern, just being able to witness it. And this sounds like a very simple thing, and it really is. But the thing is that our ego, our whole way of relating to life, our identity, our emotions, our behaviors, our thoughts, this has really grabbed our attention, and our awareness is really kind of meshed with it. And this is problematic because we have to take a bird's eye view when we are observing ourselves. We have to be able to detach from these things. And this doesn't just involve some cold, distant witnessing, but this also involves actively feeling, or just active feeling, which I'll get to soon. But really, we need to become more self-aware and just watch our thoughts. And I have a bunch of practices as well, of course, right on the board behind me, that will help you to do that. But right off the bat, I want to also talk about the importance of being able to change how we are relating to these thought patterns. So these thought patterns, as they're happening, are automatically believed for some reason. Your mind says something, it just says a story, it says something imaginary, it's imagination, it's thoughts, and you automatically believe it, and you take it really seriously, and you identify with it, and your whole awareness, your whole attention is just so contracted into it, it's just all going into there. And it's really, this is a very fragmented way to live. This whole, just being constantly absorbed in your mind all day. Nothing wrong with thinking or anything like that, but it's the relationship to thought that is the problem. It's how serious we take it and how much we are either trying to get away from it, as just avoid it, and also just how much we are believing it and buying into it. So our mind is kind of like a tool, but really the way that humans are using it nowadays, it's more like the tool is using us. It's more like we are a slave to our conditioning because we are just lacking in emotional intelligence, self-awareness, intrapersonal skills. And I want to talk about the importance of actively questioning your thought patterns instead of simply believing them. Is this true? And how do I know it's true? And I want you to notice how opinion-based and just belief-based your thoughts really are. A lot of the thought patterns are just beliefs that you are telling yourself just so that they can have more power, really. It's like each belief is reinforcing another belief, and you keep telling yourself these beliefs of, I'll start with a pretty simple one, like I'm not good enough, a classic negative thought. Oh no, I'm not good enough. And this is clearly just opinion and belief. And this can be challenged, this can be changed, this can be observed, this can be felt through and related to in a different way. We can see what emotions this is actually bringing up and handle these emotions directly, which I will be teaching you how to do in this video. Really, this is a pretty tough thing to do. I'm not going to lie to you. Changing and identifying and changing a negative thought pattern is going to be more difficult than just replacing your thoughts with positive thoughts. That will not work. I'll tell you right now, that will never work. This is a hassle to do. You have to always generate a positive thought, This seems like a huge pain in the ass, to be honest. And it's just impractical, and it'll just never work out that way. Eventually, you'll forget to do it, you'll slip back, and really, a lot of our negative thought patterns are the byproduct of underlying unconscious and repressed emotions, which I'll be getting to soon with emotional work, very soon. But really, when we are talking about changing our mind, we're talking about changing ourself. And our self, our identity, has a very powerful momentum behind it. It seeks to maintain itself and reinforce itself and survive at all costs. So this change is going to happen over a period of time if we are consistently putting in the necessary effort to bring about that change. And before I move on to stuff on the board, I want you to be very open to all this stuff and try and look at it with a fresh point of view. Because you might think like, oh, empathy or like gratitude or willpower, self-awareness. I know what this stuff is. I already know what this stuff is. And I want to call BS on that. Unless you are actively developing these things, I want to say that you're completely clueless about what they are. These are actually skills that have to be actively worked on. And this word actively is extremely important for this video, and basically most of my videos, because it's not enough to watch a YouTube video or even just read a book or learn something on the internet or hear the idea of like self-awareness a couple times. You have to actually establish some practices and some habits and return to them day after day and put in some effort. You have to really want it and actually do something about it to actually get the result and to develop these things. These are actually skills, like I just said, that have to be developed consciously and intentionally and actively done. So if you aren't actively doing it, if you're scrolling on social media, YouTube video after YouTube video, television, junk food, lack of physical exercise, these are such basic things. And really, if a lot of this kind of stuff has your attention hooked, obviously you're not going to be able to make the change. So we need to be very honest about where we are at. We cannot give ourselves the impression that we understand more than we currently understand. If we have never made a sincere effort to increase our emotional intelligence and our self-awareness, odds are we do not have very high emotional intelligence and self-awareness. This needs to be actively worked on. Now, that's basically that. I hope you can get where I'm going with that. I hope that's enough. So negative thought patterns often stem from underlying emotions such as fear, anger, sadness, or guilt. These emotions can be triggered by past experiences or current circumstances and can lead to thoughts that are harmful or unproductive. And I want to point out, if you haven't noticed by now, how interconnected our thoughts and emotions are. And really making this distinction between a thought and an emotion, obviously we can distinguish the two, but I want to point out that there's no clear boundary separating these two things, and how interconnected they are, and how when we really try and find the boundary between a thought and an emotion, it's interesting how difficult it actually is to find, if we can even find it at all, because they are so interconnected. So they are very closely linked, and in order to change negative thoughts, you have to actively address the underlying emotions, which can be uncomfortable, but it is completely worth it. A very necessary part of changing negative thought patterns is honesty. You are going to have to be very clear to yourself. I have a playlist on honesty. You might want to check that out. But you're going to have to be very clear to yourself about what you're feeling, what you're doing about it, whether you're avoiding it, whether you distract yourself from it and what you do to distract yourself from it. Things like this. You're going to have to be very honest with where you're at. You'll have to actually admit to yourself that I've never intentionally done practices to develop my emotional intelligence and self-awareness. I've never deliberately done it day after day after day for a period of time. So this kind of clarity, which might be a little bit hard to swallow, this pill might be a little bit hard to swallow, this is very important for getting a sense of where we are at and where we need to be moving towards. Now, actively feeling and processing emotions rather than suppressing or avoiding them can help reduce the power of negative thoughts and change negative thought patterns. And now I have a bunch of qualities relating to emotional work. And all of this, like I said, is very active. And I think one of the most important ones on this board is this first one right here, active feeling, or just actively feeling. The word active implies that it's something that we're doing intentionally and with awareness. And I want you to view all of this stuff not as a bunch of separate qualities that are completely distinct from one another, but as completely interconnected, and each quality bringing another quality to life. So as we develop, let's say, meditation, we develop more self-compassion, self-awareness, empathy, and our ability to cognitively reframe, which I'll explain what that is later, increases. We'll, better rest, and all this stuff goes together. All this stuff is completely inseparable from one another. So let's talk about active feeling. This is basically allowing yourself to feel what it is you're feeling. Don't even care about the specific thought that you're having right now. Really, I want you to allow yourself to feel whatever it is you're feeling. Feel where it is. If it's in your gut, your tummy, your heart, head, shoulders are raised, wherever it is, identify where in your body some of these uncomfortable, rigid, tense places are that are usually fighting and struggling. They're usually very tense and there's some struggle going on there. I want you to identify where that is in your body and begin to feel what's happening there and actively bring awareness into those places. Actively feel what is there. Notice the physical sensations. Notice how the physical sensations are constantly changing, constantly fluctuating, and get in touch with that. That is basically enough for actively feeling. You want to just give yourself permission to sit down and feel what it actually is you're feeling and acknowledge that it exists. That's important. That's a part of honesty. Acknowledging that these struggling areas in you exist instead of avoiding them, distracting yourself from them, being totally ignorant of them. We want to discover something true about ourselves because we're not going to make some change to ourselves that is worthwhile if it doesn't involve truth. Truth really matters. We want to feel good, which is why we want to change negative thought patterns, but we're not going to do that without this honesty and truth component, this very direct and willingness to see what is true, no matter how brutal it might be. So we're going to have to really be honest about what it is we're feeling, where it is that we're struggling, and that our body is tense and rigid and fighting itself. We'll have to acknowledge that. You can just pay attention to your own gut right now and see that it's most likely locked up and fighting itself. Moving on, identify and label emotions. I have to sneeze. Oh my God. But I don't know, it left. Okay, moving on. Identify and label emotions. Try to identify and label the emotions you are feeling. This can help to increase self-awareness and understand what the emotion is and the source of the emotion. So when we experience anger, frustration, sadness, shame, guilt, fear, anxiety, worry, whatever it is, first of all, this stuff is not just like random and will come and go. This stuff is really stored in you. These emotions are repressed and actually stored in you. There's like a warehouse, there's like a reservoir of this garbage essentially stuck in you that has to be addressed in order for it to actually clear out. And it's not going to get up and leave because you feel good temporarily watching a TV show or eating a sweet food or talking to this person or that person or whatever. The source of these emotions is your relationship to all of life. It's how you relate to thoughts, how you relate to these feelings, how much you struggle against life, your beliefs that you hold so dearly as though they are so true and accurate. All of this stuff is really the stuff to be ongoingly and actively examining. So when anger arises, just be honest to yourself. Honesty comes right back to this. When you get angry, get into an argument with a loved one or something like that, just be, I was angry and I was a bit reactive. I was a bit impulsive. Okay, this is how it feels. Okay, I can feel how tense I am, how heated I am. It's stored here in my body, for example, stored in my gut, maybe my solar plexus. So actually just stating to yourself in a very clear way what you're feeling helps to develop this clarity that is absolutely essential for developing emotional intelligence and having a clear understanding of your own emotions. Moving on, this one's extremely important, is meditation. This is really a practice, but this is so important that I just have to talk about it because this is really one of the most important things that you can do for yourself. Really, meditation, setting aside 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20, 30, 40, whatever, however much time a day to just investigate yourself is insanely important for developing every single one of these skills. You can begin to actually be curious about yourself. I know, believe it or not, you can actually care enough about yourself to ongoingly give yourself the attention that you actually need and deserve. So meditation is basically just sitting down and observing yourself directly. And this can seem like a waste of time. This can seem silly because you're sitting down doing nothing, you idiot, go be productive. But not so fast. This is going to help you develop a lot of these emotional skills, these intrapersonal skills, which then actually also help in the external world. They help with social situations. They help with productivity, focus. They help with relational skills, really, as well. And I'm just going to talk a little bit more about meditation. So this is about observing your emotions without judgment, letting them pass. So observing them, actively feeling them, and then letting them pass without getting so caught up in them. Because our emotions have us by the balls. When some negative thought pattern arises, when some strong, intense emotion arises, you act very reactively. And we're just going to have to be honest about that and very clear. You act very impulsively. You are loaded, you are completely distracted by your phone, computer, YouTube, social media, junk food, like stimulating garbage, video games, whatever it is. The modern world is loaded with a bunch of crap that is designed to pull your attention and just keep it hooked and just addicted into something like TV, video games. Of course, the foods we eat are designed to get us addicted to them. A lot of the foods we eat are literally designed for that. This high sugar, high salt, high fat, extremely high protein. This kind of stuff, we need that stuff to live, but it's designed and engineered really in such a way so that it preys upon a lot of the psychological and biological mechanisms within you so that your attention is absolutely hooked to a lot of these things like TV as well. So really be honest with yourself and just notice how distracted you are, how you wake up and check your phone or are lost on your computer checking it email for no reason, really you are very disconnected from life. You're disconnected from your mind. You're disconnected from your emotions. You're disconnected from your body. You don't ever really bring awareness into your body in an active way. And we need to be honest about this. We have to realize that we are simply not putting in the effort necessary to live a healthy life where we can actually feel good and feel connected to life and actually really care about ourselves, our life, the people around us, and even more stuff. So really practicing mindfulness and meditation can help increase self-awareness, reduce stress, improve emotional regulation, and this can help reduce the power of negative thoughts and really just clean up your life. It gives you an opportunity to begin caring about yourself. Really, meditation is the act of caring about yourself. It's not even much of an act, but I'll just leave it at that. You just give yourself awareness, attention, your own awareness. You actually care about what you're feeling, what you're thinking. You actively observe it. You don't get lost in it, but you get very curious about yourself. You actually decide to just give yourself the necessary attention and to do it over and over and over and over again. And this is really not debatable. You absolutely have to give yourself this attention, because what else are you giving attention to? Social media, mindless YouTube videos that are a complete waste of time. You're not investing your attention wisely. I want you to notice this. I want you to notice how your attention gets leaked into BS. How your attention and your energy is just given away to garbage foods. Maybe toxic people as well that aren't serving you. That aren't, serving your, highest purpose and where you want to go in your life, your highest vision of yourself. How you give it to just nonsense, and just notice that you give your attention to nonsense and that you're addicted to it. That really you come back day after day to get your little dopamine hit of Instagram or checking the email or TV, just this overstimulation. And this is something we got to be very clear about, because this is really screwing young people up, old people too, and this is really just screwing up our whole life in our society. We are a bunch of addicts for this crap, and we have to notice that. Moving on, imagery. Visualize the emotion as an object, a color, or a shape. Try to understand it and observe it without getting caught up in it. I don't really do imagery, but a lot of people might like this. So I can't really talk about it too much because I'm not familiar enough with it. But you can just use this as a process, or basically as a technique to reflect upon what you're feeling. Like it said, like the color or the shape of the emotion. I know the color, for me personally, that's like something that I would do now that I really think about it. But basically, you're going to want to use every one of these to gain insight and more self-awareness and more direct experience, really, with your own thoughts and emotions. Because really what I mean by, gaining insight, all this stuff, direct experience, this is not something we actually have. We don't really have much experience with our internal world. And really, this is because we live our lives on autopilot. We are not very engaged with our life. We are not very aware of the sensations in our body. We're not really conscious of our thoughts as they're happening. They're just happening, and we are very much a slave to these things. We are very much a slave to our cravings, to avoiding our fears. Really, a lot of this stuff is what is driving us. Our most repressed and unconscious feelings really deeply drive us. Our loneliness, shame, fear, guilt, anger, shame, sadness, whatever. So imagery can be really good. Express yourself. So expression. And this involves finding a healthy way to express yourself, whether it's, of course, talking to someone. That's great. Talking to people is fantastic. Community is a really good way to personally develop. You can Share your feelings and be vulnerable with people. This is very important for really any form of overall intimacy, and really just opening up yourself emotionally and being able to get a clearer idea of what's inside of you. Other people can help you with that if they're on the same page as you and if they are acting with integrity. But not only that, you can hold each other accountable as well. So this is really important. But yeah, back to just expressing yourself. Writing is really good, even making some music, whatever it is, punching a punching bag. Really, like whatever it is, if you want to create art, of course that's good. But I want to point out that it's not like you can do one or two of these things and then you'll be good. You really have to implement all of them. It's like everything I've written on the board here is very essential. Like, it's not like you can pick your favorite two and then only do that. Really, you have to do all of them. And you might gravitate towards 2, 3 of them, but really, like, they need to all be seriously investigated by you for a period of time so that you can cultivate this new level of consciousness, this emotional intelligence. You can cultivate this growth, really. So all of this stuff is essential, and it's all very important. It's like, oh, I want to skip out on like meditation, and I'll just write about it. This is a little bit too, for example, this is just a little bit too intellectual. We're not directly observing our own thoughts and feelings enough. We're not actively feeling what's there. We're just kind of writing about it, and it's not being investigated and felt and processed at this emotional level. Although writing is fantastic, and it's really going to help you a lot. It's really going to help you a lot. Like journaling, it's really going to help you. But you need skills in actively feeling. You need skills in self-awareness, and meditation is just such a good way to cultivate it. It's just such a perfect practice for this, really. Moving on. Journaling and writing. Writing down your thoughts and feelings can help you to identify patterns and triggers and to develop new ways of thinking. So you want to actually identify the pattern. Like, when this happens, I think in this way. Or when this happens, I go down this reactive road. Or whenever this happens, these feelings arise. And once again, you actively have to do this. It's like you actually have to do this. This is just insanely important. I'm sorry that there's no way around this. You do not understand what I'm actually saying right now unless you actually do it. It's not like, oh, I get it, I write down my feelings, oh my God. It's like, no, actually sit down and feel that there's a bunch of crap in you. You're struggling, you're fighting, you're resisting, your beliefs are making you hate certain people. And like, it's just nuts. Like, you hate that group, you don't like that stuff, all these people are awful. And that really, a lot of what runs the show is a lot of the toxic stuff inside of you that you've been running from and avoiding your whole life. And really, if we want to make any real significant change to ourselves, this is the stuff that has to be addressed, and there's no way around it. You're not going to positively think your way out of this one. You're not going to it's just not going to work. There's no other way to do this unless you develop the intrapersonal skills. Unless you establish some of these practices as well. Another good one is rest or self-care and relaxation. So engaging in self-care activities, yoga, like stretching your body. This is really important. Of course, I actually put reading as well, but reading is also really, I'll come back to that though. Spending time in nature as well. So like just overall rest. Like, a lot of people have a lot of problem resting. Like, we are very sort of, just like we're so overworked. And then when we're not doing something, it feels strange, we feel uncomfortable, we feel like we have to occupy our mind, we can't sit still. And this just comes down to poor focusing problems, even, poor diet. We eat a bunch of sugar, a bunch of crap food, and we wonder why we can't focus. A lot of this stuff just gets blamed on ADHD, but a lot of our diet, a lot of our lifestyle, how much stimulation we're getting from our phone, our computer, a lot of this stuff comes into play. It's not like there's just something wrong with my brain. I have to always be doing something. I have to always be engaged in some activity. So You want to actually give yourself time to just rest, sleep, go for a walk, just look at a tree, and actually be still. This correlates, or it's kind of relates really to meditation. You want to actually give yourself the necessary time to do nothing. And this is really important because when we're sitting there doing nothing, all of our crap comes up. Everything is there to just be observed and witnessed. How much we fidget and run away, our anxiousness, our discomfort in our body, our struggle, our resistance, this can be perfectly seen. And even better, the excuses that we make to avoid this stuff. Like, oh, I just have ADHD, therefore I can't do that because I just have ADHD. Maybe you do have genuine ADHD. Maybe you got some focusing problems. But still, focus is a skill that has to be developed. If you've never actively developed focusing, you're not going to be very good at it. Most people's attention is very weak. It easily gets pulled. They're easily pulled to their phone, their computer, their email, garbage food. They're easily distracted, okay? Everyone is overstimulated, so this idea that, oh, just because I have ADHD, I can't focus, this is a little bit of nonsense. It's easy to use that as an excuse, is really what I'm saying. It's not that I don't have like a sense of empathy or warmth or compassion to people who genuinely do have ADHD. They're just more hyperactive. It's also that we don't want to use that as an excuse for bypassing the necessary work that we have to do to address these underlying emotions. And actually, I read in a good book, Social Intelligence by Daniel Goleman, that a lot of ADHD, I can't quote it directly, like perfectly, but a lot of those patterns are somewhat similar to neural networks in our brain that basically they want to play. Really, it's like a lot of that activity is associated with wanting to play. It's like this innocent, childlike wanting to play. I have a friend who was diagnosed with ADHD. So was I. I was diagnosed with ADHD. I don't actually have ADHD though. And both of us, I remember when I was young, him too. We were both very active, very playful, wanted to go out and explore, very adventurous people. We liked exploring ideas and like the world as well. And it was just interpreted as ADHD. And that was just blatantly wrong. I remember being very young and my feelings were more associated with I want to play. I want to be more adventurous. I'm a child, there's nothing wrong with me. It's just when you feed me crap food, when you force me to sit down for 6 hours at a desk doing something very dull, obviously I'm going to get restless. I'm 8 years old. So we want to be aware of the stories we tell ourselves that might influence us to not do the work. That's really what I'm getting at with this. And I have seen a lot of the ADHD related ones where it's, oh, I have ADHD, I can't meditate. Maybe that's true, but maybe it's not. And it's worth investigating. Like I said, we have to actually question our thoughts. We can't just believe them right away. So basically anything that says that, oh no, that one I just can't do. I just can't do that. We have to question that, okay? We have to develop these skills, okay? I want to make this practical. It's something you have to do. It's not something you're going to sit and think about and then the problem is going to go away. The emotional issue is going to go away. The whole way that you relate to something that is dysfunctional is just going to go away. It needs active investigation. And meditation is literally just actively investigating what is happening inside of you. So yeah, I'm just really selling it a bit too much now. I'll move on. So reading, I'll talk about reading. This one is really important, and really you want to read books on psychotherapy. This one is very important for this whole topic of emotional well-being and really changing negative thought patterns and learning to become more self-aware and understand what's happening inside of you psychologically and emotionally. I have some very good book recommendations I'm going to say right now. Okay, I want you to listen. It's very important. A book called No Bad Parts by Richard Schwartz. You can find these on Amazon, the internet, anywhere on the internet really. Thrift Books, Abe Books. Bringing Your Shadow Out of the Dark by Robert Augustus Masters. This one right here is very good too. The Self-Acceptance Project. Really, it's edited by Tammy Simon. It's just a bunch of various writers. That's very good too. And there's just a lot of very good books on psychotherapy and really emotions and self-awareness and all this stuff. This one's really good too. Anchored. Here, I'll let you take a quick look at it. See, you're going to want to get this. This stuff is very important. You actually want to read books on this stuff. Like, buy the book and actually sit down and read it and contemplate it and write out some of it. When you read something profound in a book, write it after and think about it and integrate it and just sit with it and feel what's happening inside of you. Feel what it's like to contemplate. Observe what's happening. So that's all really important. You're going to want to read books that are going to really help you to be well. And really, psychotherapy and forms of therapy are really important, like exposure therapy as well. But yeah, you really want to look into therapy. And there's nothing wrong with you if you go to therapy. There's a sort of belief that's oh, this guy needs therapy, there's something wrong with him. When you actually read books on psychotherapy, you're going to realize that, wow, everyone needs a lot of therapy. Everyone is actually really sick. That sounds very pessimistic, but there's a lot of unhealthy crap that is infecting almost everyone in society, and we really have to pay attention to it. It's never going to go away unless we decide to look at it, investigate it, be open, and really understand it, and more. So yeah, you can actually talk to a therapist as well. That'll also really help you. And all this stuff, all this reading and therapy, it's going to provide you with a bunch of techniques and a new way of relating to your emotions that is going to basically help you to relate to them in a healthier way. Now, moving on, I have talked a bit about the emotional work. I've went through all these points. I'm done with it for now. I'm moving on. We want to go on to the actual qualities that you want to develop. And these are traits, personality traits almost, that you want to actively develop within yourself. And the very first one is self-awareness. So this is the ability to recognize and understand your own thoughts and emotions. You basically can develop this. Like I said, these are skills you have to actively develop through, of course, meditation. And you can actually do this whenever. Instead of being lost in your thoughts, lost in your feelings, fighting them, struggling them, hating them, thinking that they're bad or that they have to, you have to get rid of these ones and then you got to get these ones. Get rid of those thoughts, I need more of those thoughts. Get rid of that feeling, I need more of this feeling. You can actually watch this whole war playing out. You can actually watch all this struggling, fighting, resisting. You can actually watch everything happening inside of you. You can just observe all of this actively and begin to get very curious about what your subjective experience is and investigate it for yourself instead of just being lost in it and letting it just run you automatically in this unconscious, animalistic, impulsive, and just instinctive way where you're kind of just a slave to it. We want to break out of this hypnosis. It's really like a state of hypnosis. You're just lost in the trance of your thoughts. You're lost in the trance of your emotions. There's nothing wrong with thoughts or emotions. Not like these are bad things that I can never, be lost in them ever again, whatever. It's just that we want to develop a good amount of awareness so that these things can be observed and seen clearly and that they can be rewired, really, so that we can actually bring about a personal transformation that is going to last and really make us feel good and is also based off of something true about ourselves. Moving on is willpower. This is the ability to control and redirect your thoughts even when they are negative. So by control, I don't really mean like getting in there and grabbing it and just getting hold of it. It's more so about being able to like let them go and not let them run you. That's really what it's like to be in control of a thought or a feeling. It's not like I can manipulate my thought and my feeling to get the specific thought or feeling that I want and stop all the ones that I don't want. It's more about actively investigating, feeling, observing, and being able to let them go. And by letting go, I don't mean like, oh, I don't like this thought or I don't like this feeling. Oh, I gotta let it go, let it go. I gotta let go of the things that I don't like, and then the things that I do like, oh, I gotta grab them. I gotta get more of that. It's like this ongoing thing that's happening moment by moment of just letting go. A feeling arises and a feeling goes. Doesn't matter the feeling. Doesn't matter if you like it or not. It's going to come, it's going to go. And for as long as you cling to them, fight them, struggle against them, it's going to make you suffer. It's going to be a lot more painful than it has to be, regardless of whether it's pleasurable or painful. If you struggle and fight against it, if you cling on to good feelings and push away bad feelings, it's going to be very uncomfortable. Pleasurable feelings turn to pain very fast when we start to grab hold of them and attach ourselves to them. Because at one point they go and we're going to be like, what happened to that state? What happened to that feeling? I felt so good the other day, now I feel like this. And it's just this whole emotionally unintelligent relationship to our thoughts and feelings. So willpower, really this involves as well basically how we're relating to our thoughts and feelings and where we're giving our attention and how we're letting our thoughts, in a sense, control us. So we want not only to control and redirect our thoughts, but really redirect our attention so that it's not lost in clinging to a particular thought, a particular feeling, a particular pattern, a particular state, but it's more in a sense of flow and harmony with what's happening, and it's more about letting go and surrendering into what's happening rather than struggling and fighting against something. Moving on is flexibility. Oh wait, no, moving on is actually self-compassion. I'm skipping stuff, man, my God. Okay, self-compassion, and this is a really important one. This is something that I don't want you to overlook, and this is a very important quality to develop. And this is something that a lot of men struggle with more than women. Women are usually, whatever, kind of a stereotype, kind of just generalizing here. A lot of women I come across tend to be more warm, empathetic, and caring towards other people and even themselves, whereas a lot of the men tend to be a little bit too cold at times, a little bit too overly rational. By rational, I just mean more like, not like rational, more like rationalizing. And somewhat emotionally disconnected. And really, it doesn't really matter if you're a guy or a girl. Like I said, these are skills to develop, and whoever wants to develop these skills and actively does so is going to be the more skilled one in this area. But generally speaking, it seems as though women are just a little bit better at this than most men that I come across. So this involves self-compassion. This involves treating yourself with kindness and understanding that can help reduce self-criticism and negative thoughts. So this is something to really get curious about. Self-compassion is almost like, I've used this example a lot in my video, it's like holding yourself like you would hold a newborn baby. When you hold a newborn baby, you don't like shake it, you don't like yell at it, you don't scream at it to do 20 push-ups. You just hold it with warmth and comfort and security and just keep it safe and loved. And that's the degree of warmth that you want to develop for yourself. Just when you sit down on a chair, you want to have that degree of care and comfort for yourself regardless of what's happening, regardless of what you're feeling, regardless of what you're thinking. You want that degree of love and acceptance for yourself, which is something you have to develop. I read in a book a while ago, this was maybe a year ago, and it was just about compassion. And it was about Buddhist monks and how compassionate they are. And this person, the scientist, asked the Buddhist monks, Do you ever move in meditation? Do you ever move? And, the answer was only out of compassion for my knees. And they had hooked them up to like a brain, one of those brain scan, with some form of technology that can just, read people's brains. And a lot of the parts that have to do with compassion were a lot more developed than the average people. And that answer is radical, only out of compassion for my knees. Who has compassion for their knees? Like, has anyone ever told you to be compassionate for your knees? But this guy who has been sitting down is so accepting and so loving that he loves his knees when they're in pain. And he like he is caring and tender and sweet towards his knees. Have you ever met anyone with that degree of love and acceptance and that degree of warmth and compassion, really? And I remember thinking that about around like a year ago. I'm like, man, like I have to develop that, or else like what else am I gonna do? What else am I gonna do? Seriously. I can't, it's like this is a quality that you really want. Like, it's going to make you feel a lot better, feel a lot more at ease, and also be less reactive. And a year later, I've done quite a lot of meditation retreats, and that is really how it naturally feels. I naturally have this deeper sense of warmth and compassion for myself, even if I'm in pain or struggling. Like, if I have a stomach ache, I'm not like, oh, damn this stomach ache. Oh, stupid stomach ache. It's more like, oh man, like I'm just holding myself with warmth and ease. It's like I'm in pain and I'm just kind of giving myself the attention that I'm in need of. I'm taking things slow. I'm resting. Things like this. And I'm not like fighting what's happening. I'm not struggling or resisting or fighting against it. I'm accepting what's happening. And I'm bringing a sense of warmth and care and tenderness to the situation. Now, this is actually a proper relationship to have to your pain. We usually hate our pain, hate our repressed emotions, hate all this stuff, want to run away from it, avoid it, pretend like it's not there. And this whole way of relating to it, this way that I'm advocating for, this is really how to uncover this stuff in a way that doesn't really just disturb you. So you need honesty, you need clarity, you need direction, you need to be firm, but you have to be loving, accepting, compassionate, warm, and empathetic simultaneously. You have to bridge together some of these more masculine aspects, some of these more feminine aspects. Bring them together and integrate all of these qualities, these skills. Now, I think I'm moving on to flexibility. So the ability to adapt to new ideas and perspectives, which can help in reframing negative thoughts. And I'm probably going to be bringing this up a bit. This has a lot to do with cognitive reframing as well, but we can actually open up our mind. Okay, I know it's a radical thing. We can open our mind to thinking something different. We actually need to be open and flexible enough to change. If we are closed and rigid and completely believing in our whatever negative thought pattern, we will never change it because we're clinging on to it, we're attaching ourselves to it. And with flexibility, we can actually not only challenge the belief that our negative thought is saying, the opinion it's saying, we can change it and we can reframe it. Moving on, positive attitude. And I put positive in quotes here because I wanted to explain what I mean by the word positive here. I don't just mean sunshine, flowers and rainbow, and blind optimism. It's not what I mean. That's not going to do you any good. I'm sorry. But really, this has a lot to do with focusing on the good, I'm going to put in quotes again, the good in situations, and not dwelling on the negative. So really, what I mean by this is when we have some kind of situation, changing, this goes hand in hand with flexibility, changing how we are viewing it, not in this self-defeating, self-shaming way, but more so in a way that is helping us to grow. Maybe something, happens and, we get triggered, we feel shame, guilt, whatever, we go into some negative thought patterns. This is a perfect opportunity to notice the parts of ourselves that need attention, healing, and that we've disassociated from for so long. Notice how we run away from these things. Just notice the running and avoiding and distracting from these things. And notice the emotional, just notice the emotions that happen as a byproduct of this. Notice that it really isn't comfortable and that to do this your whole life isn't wise. So this positive attitude has a lot to do with reframing things in a way that is constructive, not in thinking in terms of sun showers, rainbows, and fairies, and butterflies, and unicorns, and muffins, and cupcakes. That's not what we want to do. Just like, oh, only focus on the positive and ignore the negative. No. If there's something true about us, like we're loaded with unconscious shame, that doesn't sound very optimistic and positive. But nonetheless, it's true, and we have to notice it. It has to be brought to our attention so that we can properly handle it. And the thing is how we view that. See, it doesn't have to be like this negative, bad thing. It's very important to be honest and direct about what's happening inside of us in a way that basically helps us to make constructive change. So we can actually relate to situations in a way that will help us to notice the things that we need to pay attention to about ourselves and actively change. So if we're getting triggered by a situation, if we're getting angry, if we're getting really sad about something, we're getting very lonely, we're getting very ashamed, we feel shame, we feel some guilt, we feel some sadness, we can notice that this is actually a way that our emotional system is telling us that there's like almost something we're not doing right, for lack of a better word right now. There's some other way to relate to this situation that doesn't involve me having these, repressed emotions continuously come up. And it doesn't mean that we'll never feel shame, guilt, whatever. There's healthy forms of sadness. There's healthy forms of, grief, shame, etc. There's healthy forms of guilt. And then there's the unhealthy, repressed stuff, which is what I'm talking about. All the more repressed, unconscious, running away, avoiding, distracting, this is what we want to expose. We want to bring this to the light. And all the other stuff, like, let's say, you feel some grief because your grandmother passed away. Yeah, if you loved your grandmother, you're probably going to cry because she just died and she's going to be gone forever. There's nothing wrong with feeling grief and a sense of loss for that. That's just being human. But the relationship to that emotion, we can struggle against that emotion, we can fight it, we can hate it, or we can bring in some tenderness, some warmth, some acceptance, and actually some love for this situation, which just sounds strange, to love when your grandmother passes away. But really, this is the attitude that we actually want to develop in ourselves, because this is life. Okay, this is inevitable that people die, things change, things don't last forever. And that, we can struggle against that for the rest of our life. We can fight it and hate it, but it's never going to change. That whole approach isn't going to actually change the situation, and that we have to tune ourselves in a way so that we are living more harmoniously with life and connected to the truths of life, rather than just our ideals and our beliefs about how it should be and how it should work and blah, blah, blah. So the truth is very important, as well as how we are relating and framing things. So the positive attitude has to do with viewing things in a way that is going to help us to construct long-term growth for ourselves. Not sunshine, flowers, rainbows, butterflies, whatever. And some truths might be a little bit hard to swallow. Actually, many of them will be. There's going to be a lot of stuff you're avoiding and running away from in yourself that you're not even going to want to admit that you're doing, or that it's there in the first place. And it's precisely these things that can seem negative or pessimistic that are going to be the most challenging for us to be honest about. And it's precisely these things that are the most important for us to get clear on, because this is exactly where our unconscious garbage actually is. Moving on is resilience, the ability to bounce back from setbacks and challenges, which can help in developing emotional resilience. Watch my video, How to Handle Personal Failures and Imperfections. I think it's that one. That has a lot to do with this. So when you make an error, when something is set back, when something challenges you and you fail, really you want to observe everything that's happening. Observe how you're relating to it. Observe how reactive you get. Observe what you're feeling. Observe what you're thinking. And notice exactly where your triggers are. Notice what's really going on inside of you. Actively feel. Don't ever forget about this one. Don't ever forget about actively feeling. That one's really important. You want to connect to the present moment. You want to connect to what you're feeling, physical sensations. You want to connect to your thoughts. You want to observe them. And you want to just be curious about yourself. You want to actually care about what's happening inside of you. I know, it's really radical. Next is empathy. So yeah, you're going to want to watch my video on how to deal with personal failures. That one will help you a lot with that one. So empathy, the ability to understand and relate to the feelings of others, which can help in understanding the perspective of others and to avoid negative thought patterns that are based on misunderstandings and prejudices. So yeah, a lot of our negative thought patterns can happen in relation to people. This is probably going to be a very common one for almost everyone. And really, empathy for other people is a fantastic way, of course, to develop more emotional awareness within ourselves and how and why we withhold our empathy from people. And it's going to help our social skills as well. It's going to help our ability to relate to people, see people clearly, truthfully. Truth, that's very important. And it's going to really rewire how we are interpreting other people. We want to know why it is they're doing the things that they do, why they feel the way that they feel, and really not in a way that shames them or takes a moral high ground, but in a way that actually cares about them, and in a way that is, I'm going to use the word mature here, in a way that doesn't demonize them. This is really what I want to get at. If you don't have the ability to care about someone, that's okay. If in this moment you just can't, you're so angry at them, you can be angry, that's okay. But you want to begin to move away from demonizing other humans as though what they do is bad and wrong and evil, blah, blah, blah. You want to get that people actually have, to them, very valid reasons for behaving the way they behave, believing the things they believe, doing the things that they do. And that no one thinks of themselves as the evil guy or the bad guy or the stupid guy. We think of ourselves as the hero, the good guy, the smart one. And that empathy, this skill is going to radically increase our ability to understand ourselves as well, others, and change how we relate to both of these things. So you want to actively do that. When you are socializing with someone, don't be lost in your thoughts. Obviously you can think. I'm not saying don't think. But tune into the actual feeling of the situation. Bring your attention to the pure feeling, like the sensory experience of feeling, and use that to connect with people very deeply. And practice it over and over and over again. Like I said, this is a skill. You got to develop it. And really just tune into that over and over and over and over again so that you can properly get what people are feeling. Moving on is patience. This is another important one. So this involves being persistent and consistent in the practice of new thought patterns, new emotional patterns, and to be patient with yourself and the process of change. All of this is going to happen over a period of time. You're not going to just make this radical shift in one day. Of course, I don't really think anyone watching this video really thinks that. But really, it can seem discouraging when you put in so much work and then, let's say in a month, there's this reactive pattern that pops up. And you think oh man, it's not working. Actually, it's working. Doing a lot of this stuff might actually bring out some of the most unconscious stuff that you've never seen about yourself ever in your life, really. Really, you have seen it, but it's just been pushed away. And like I said, this isn't just sunshine, flowers, and rainbows. It might be uncomfortable. There will be uncomfortable, actually. It definitely will be uncomfortable. We're talking about all the stuff you've avoided and distracted yourself from. So you want to be patient, of course, with the process of change. You want to have some faith as well, okay? You want to actually have enough faith to actually experiment with the things I'm saying over a period of time, months maybe. Like, it's not going to be a 1 week thing, okay? I'm sorry. It's not going to be a 1 week thing. This is like reconstructing your actual self and who you are in the world so that you are a more emotionally intelligent and self-aware individual. This is going to radically change the course of your life. It's not a 1-2 thing. It's not a little thing. Okay, this is talking about completely changing your whole self, like I talked about in the beginning of the video. And this thing is going to fight, kick back, get reactive, because our whole sense of self, our whole ego, our thought patterns, our emotional patterns, these almost have a life of their own, and they want to reinforce themselves. They want to remain the same. They want to remain alive. They're homeostatic. So we want to have patience with change, because change does not happen, big change at least, does not happen very quickly. And that really, in the process of changing ourselves, we're going to run into resistance, we're going to run into fear, we're going to run into anxiety and worry. We're going to run into this stuff, and we have to have the emotional intelligence to investigate it and get clear about what's going on. Moving on is gratitude. The ability to find things to be thankful for, which can help shift the focus from negative to positive. So we want to actually, as dumb as this sounds, and as really counterintuitive as this is, we want to be grateful for our suffering. We want to be grateful that our reactivity, our suffering, our pain, this points out all of the stuff inside of us that we are not addressing. This is not here to kill you. This is just your emotional system telling you that there's something inside of you that you haven't addressed and that it needs the attention. It needs to be cared about. You have to care about yourself. You have to give yourself your attention and awareness. Okay, yeah, so also, of course, in the external world, you can find things to be grateful for. Like, I'm grateful that I could drink water today. I'm grateful that I have, these great people in my life. I'm grateful that I have this roof over my head. Of course, you want to learn how to relate to life in a way that is more grateful and connected to it, rather than fighting against it, wanting it to be different all the time. And these kinds of patterns, really. So gratitude has a lot to do with accepting the present moment as it is and not struggling against it. And accepting the present moment as it is doesn't mean that we can't change it. We can accept the present moment and seek to change it. Like, if there's a problem with us, we can accept that this problem exists. We don't have to be reactive about it. We don't have to make a big deal about it. And we can also change it, and we can be kind of laid back about it. So that's important. Moving on is curiosity. Gratitude, curiosity. So this is the ability to be curious and open-minded in exploring new perspectives and ideas. This can be challenging, and it can even feel a little bit strange, because we're going to be challenging our own thought process. Our own mind is what we're questioning here. We're going to be changing negative thought patterns and thought patterns in general into stuff that is more accurate, more true, and isn't just creating a lot of unnecessary suffering. So curiosity encourages a growth mindset, which allows us to see challenges as opportunities for learning and growth instead of as failures. I know, right? Pretty cool. So really, curiosity is like a way, it's a quality, of course, it's a quality that you bring to a situation that changes how you are relating to it. So for example, when you get into, let's say, conflict with your significant other, you can get reactive and fight and burst out and whatever and hate them in your mind and go into all these nasty thought patterns. Or you can get curious about, why do I have this preference and they have this preference? Why do we feel disconnect? Like, why do I feel the need to convince them of my preference or my belief? Why do we feel disconnected from each other when we have these sorts of, differences in what we prefer and think? Can I be open to why they are the way they are? Why do they prefer this? Why do they think that? So curiosity brings about this shift in attitude that is going to change how you relate to situations. And really, these are traits that you want to put into your personality. So you're actually really changing yourself. Like if you do this stuff properly, you're really in years to come, you will be a completely different person. That's the goal. Because really this stuff there's no shallow level solution for this. It's not like, you're going to do 5 minutes meditation, read one book, blah, 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 you're done, although that can help a bit. Really, this is a shift in your life. This is a shift in yourself. This is a shift in your relationship to everything. Relationship to people, relationship to your emotions, relationship to your thoughts, relationship to your occupation, your family, whatever it is. Relationship to how you walk down the street. A relationship to your knees. Have some compassion for your knees. But, jokes aside, this is some serious stuff. This is not, not serious, but it's quite the task that I'm, presenting to you. Moving on is courage, and all this stuff requires courage. Everything I have said so far requires courage. This is not an easy thing to do. Basically, next to no one does this stuff because it's scary. Because investigating ourselves in this open, honest, direct, caring, loving way isn't actually an easy task. You have to develop a lot of skills that we conventionally don't even think of as skills. We don't think of, like, let's say, flexibility as a skill we have to actively work on, or self-awareness as a skill to actively work on. We don't think about feeling as something we have to actively do. But it turns out that when you begin to develop some proficiency in these skills, you realize that that is actually what they are. They're skills that have to actively be worked on, or else you won't really get what they are. You won't really have these qualities to you. So courage is the ability to face and overcome fear and uncertainty. This can help in taking action to change negative thought patterns. Courage allows us to confront, this is very important, I'm actually going to just reread that. Courage allows us to confront negative thoughts and emotions, all the unpleasant stuff inside of us that we want to run away from and distract ourselves from and avoid. Courage allows us to confront this stuff and not avoid or suppress them. It also allows us to take risks and try new things, which can help in creating new positive experiences and memories and shifts in yourself, and just helps you to personally transform yourself. So it also allows us to speak up for ourselves and set healthy boundaries, which can help in reducing stress and negative thoughts. I'll have a whole separate video for setting healthy boundaries because this is something that people struggle with. Courage also allows us to seek support from others, which can be an important step in the process of change. And really, in conclusion to all this stuff so far, the emotional work and the qualities, all of this stuff leads us to a more holistic understanding of ourselves and others, and can help to build more positive and healthy relationships. Once again, I gotta say this again. It's important to remember that developing these qualities takes time and practice, and it's also helpful to seek professional help if it is necessary. So yeah, if you need an actual therapist, go get one. So courage is obviously really important because this will actually give us the strength to confront what is there and not run away from it, not fill it up with positive thoughts, not distract ourselves from what's happening inside us with a positive thought, but actually begin to question what's going on inside us, to actively feel what's there, to be honest about our struggle, to be honest that we are struggling and fighting against something, that we struggle and fight against this person or that person or this group of people or that idea. We don't like that idea. We struggle against it. And there's a feeling inside of us that we struggle against. And courage helps us to notice how much struggling and fighting and guilt and shame and fear and anger and blah, blah, blah that there actually is inside of us. And without all these qualities, I got to put honesty as well. Honesty is the only one I forgot about. I got a whole playlist on honesty. Check it out, because this is one of the biggest ones These are all so important. All these qualities come together to create a healthy psyche. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Moving on, practices. I know I've already talked about meditation too much. Not going to go over it again. I've done it too much in this video. It's very important. Moving on is cognitive reframing. So this technique involves looking at a situation from a different perspective in order to challenge and change negative thoughts. For example, instead of thinking, I always mess up, you could reframe the thought to, I made a mistake this time, but I can learn from it and do better next time. Check out my video, How to Deal with Personal Failures and Imperfections. It's all about that. And really, this also has to do with changing, of course, how we're looking at a situation so that, like I talked about earlier with positive thinking, it's about changing how we are looking at things so that we can view them as opportunities for growth rather than just being stuck in shame and guilt and fear and anger and blah, blah, blah. Journaling, of course, I've talked about it over here. This is another practice. Writing down your thoughts and feelings can help you identify patterns and triggers and to develop new ways of thinking. Moving on, I'm not going to talk about that anymore. Positive affirmations. I know this can help a lot of people. Repeating positive affirmations such as I am capable and strong can help replace negative thoughts with positive ones. This one is very standard. This is literally just having a positive thought about yourself. This can help get those wheels turning in developing like self-compassion or flexibility or empathy. This can begin to push you in that direction. This is like the training wheels, is just saying some of these warm and tender things about yourself. This is really important for a lot of people. Just sit down and do it and feel yourself and like hold yourself like you'd hold yourself, or hold yourself like you would hold a newborn baby. Moving on, last one is reading. Reading books on psychotherapy. I already gave you some. Go back, check them out. The Self-Acceptance Project, Anchored, No Bad Parts, Bringing Your Shadow Out of the Dark. A really good one for relationships, psychotherapy and relationships, is this one right here, Transformations Through Intimacy. I've not done it yet, but it's really good so far. And this one right here is also really good. I've only actually read bits and pieces. I'm gonna read this book next though. The Body Keeps the Score. And like I said, I've only read bits and pieces, but I can intuit that this is absolutely fantastic. But some of the best ones I would recommend are Bringing Your Shadow Out of the Dark and No Bad Parts and The Self-Acceptance Project. Also, one more. I just remembered one more. It's called Trauma and the Unbound Body by Judith Blackstone. That one is also very good. So this video is literally just a root solution to a lot of your negative, or just, I don't even want to use the word negative, a lot of the uncomfortable stuff that's happening inside of you that you tend to struggle against. This video is not a quick fix or like a, take this pill, no magic pill solution. This is something you have to return to over and over and over and over again. This is not flashy because it's just not going to work. This is really about completely rewiring your whole experience of yourself and what you take yourself to be. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. But other than that, take it easy.